Welcome to Books and More, a channel that brings you the wisdom of great books in an inspiring and meaningful way. In this episode, we explore The End of Dieting by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, a groundbreaking book that redefines how we think about food, health, and freedom. Instead of endless restrictions and temporary diets, the author shows us how to nourish the body with real, living foods that heal and energize. This is not a story about dieting, it's about transformation, balance, and self-respect. Join us to discover how eating right can help you truly live for life. Introduction: A new way to live, not to diet. In the introduction, I begin by acknowledging a painful truth. We live in a world obsessed with dieting, yet sicker and heavier than ever. Every year brings a new miracle diet, a new set of promises: low carb, low fat, high protein, yet none of them last. People blame themselves for failing these diets, but in truth, it's the diets that have failed them. The constant cycle of losing and regaining weight is not only discouraging, but deeply harmful to our health. It damages metabolism, increases inflammation, and leads to diseases such as heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, and even cancer. I emphasize that our culture has been deceived by the diet industry, a trillion-dollar machine built on quick fixes and emotional manipulation. These programs sell temporary hope while ensuring long-term dependence. We have become conditioned to think that health is about calories, willpower, and deprivation, when in fact, true health begins with nourishment, not restriction. This book was written to end that illusion. It is not a diet book, but a life guide, a call to reclaim control through understanding the power of real food. I introduce the concept of nutrient density, explaining that the secret to lasting health is found in eating foods rich in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, mostly plants, beans, fruits, nuts, and seeds, and removing the processed, low-nutrient foods that dominate modern diets. I share how thousands of patients transformed their lives through this approach. People who once depended on medications for blood pressure, diabetes, or cholesterol began to heal naturally. They lost weight without starving, reversed chronic illness, and found a sense of freedom they hadn't felt in years. This is the message of the end of dieting. When we eat for life, our body's innate intelligence restores balance. The introduction closes with an invitation, a pledge. I ask readers to let go of short-term thinking, to stop chasing numbers on a scale, and instead pursue vibrant health and longevity. Eating should never be about punishment or guilt. It is a joyful, healing act, one that connects us with nature, energy, and self-respect. This is the beginning of a new relationship with food, one built on knowledge, compassion, and the simple truth that our body has always known. If we feed it right, it will take care of us for life. Chapter 1: Toxic Hunger. In this chapter, I introduce one of the most misunderstood yet powerful truths about human health. We are not driven by real hunger, but by toxic hunger. Most people who struggle with weight are not weak or lacking willpower. They are trapped in a biological cycle of withdrawal, a dependence created by years of consuming low-nutrient, high-calorie foods. When the body is deprived of essential nutrients, cells become congested with waste, oxidative stress builds up, and toxins accumulate. Between meals, these toxins trigger unpleasant sensations, headaches, fatigue, irritability, and stomach discomfort, which people mistake for hunger. This toxic hunger is not a signal that the body needs more calories, but rather that it needs detoxification and nourishment. Unfortunately, most of us respond by eating again, usually processed foods rich in salt, sugar, and fat. In doing so, we momentarily relieve the symptoms, but only by feeding the addiction further. I call this the toxic cycle of false hunger, a biochemical trap that keeps people eating even when they don't need food. I explain that toxic hunger shares the same neurological and chemical pathways as drug addiction. Just like caffeine or nicotine withdrawal, when we stop consuming our usual stimulants, such as refined carbohydrates or fried foods, our body protests. This reaction, however, is a sign of healing. As the cells release stored toxins and inflammation begins to subside, the body's craving centers start to calm. True hunger, which arises gently in the throat and mouth rather than the stomach, will only return when this detox process is complete. Many people fail to lose weight not because they eat too much, but because they do not understand what hunger truly is. Dieting that relies on calorie restriction only worsens the problem. The body continues to crave stimulation instead of nutrients, metabolism slows down, and fatigue intensifies. The only way to escape this trap is to flood the body with micronutrients from natural, plant-based foods. When you nourish the body correctly, you eliminate the biochemical cause of overeating. I invite readers to take a simple self-assessment. If you feel weak, anxious, or irritable when you miss a meal, if you constantly think about food, or if you eat even when you're not hungry, then toxic hunger may be controlling your life. Recognizing this truth is the first step toward freedom. When you switch to a nutrient-dense diet, rich in vegetables, beans, fruits, and seeds, something remarkable happens. Within a few weeks, your energy becomes stable, your mind clears, and you no longer feel enslaved by food. Meals stop being emotional crutches and become acts of nourishment. You start to eat less naturally, not through force, but because your body no longer begs for stimulation. This chapter is not just about identifying a problem, it's about awakening awareness. Toxic hunger is a signal from the body asking for renewal, not indulgence. Once you understand and respect this message, you step into a new way of living, one where food becomes medicine and hunger becomes a gentle reminder of life's natural rhythm. Chapter 2: Diet Myths Exposed. In this chapter, I confront one of the most destructive forces in modern health culture, the world of diet myths. For decades, people have been told that losing weight is simply a matter of eating less or changing the ratio of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. They are taught to count calories, to fear certain foods, and to believe that willpower alone determines success. Yet, despite endless dieting advice, the world is sicker, heavier, and more fatigued than ever. I explain that this is no coincidence. The problem is not the people, it's the misinformation that surrounds them. The diet industry thrives on failure. It sells temporary hope, not lasting health. Every few years, a new diet trend emerges: low carb, keto, high protein, paleo, all claiming to be the ultimate solution. But none address the root cause of poor health: nutrient deficiency. These diets manipulate macronutrients while ignoring micronutrients, the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytochemicals that allow our bodies to repair and rejuvenate themselves. Without these nutrients, the body is in constant distress, leading to cravings, fatigue, and disease. I remind the reader that eating fewer calories is not the same as eating healthfully. Many low-calorie diets still rely on processed food, diet sodas, protein bars, artificial sweeteners, which trick the body but never nourish it. When cells do not receive the nutrients they need, they send distress signals to the brain. We interpret this as hunger, but it is really cellular malnutrition. As a result, people eat more, not because they need fuel, but because their cells are crying out for nutrients that never arrive. Another popular myth I address is the belief that metabolism inevitably slows down with age. While it's true that many people gain weight as they get older, the cause is not aging itself, but a lifetime of poor dietary habits. When you flood your system with processed foods and animal-based proteins, your cells accumulate oxidative waste and inflammation spreads. This damages mitochondria, slows metabolism, and leads to premature aging. However, when you eat foods rich in antioxidants and fiber, vegetables, beans, fruits, nuts, and seeds, your body begins to reverse this process. You can reignite your metabolism at any age by feeding your cells what they truly need. I also expose the false idea that hunger must always be satisfied quickly. Many people panic at the first sign of emptiness, believing that skipping a snack will cause low blood sugar or fatigue. In reality, what they experience is not true hunger, but toxic withdrawal from their usual processed food intake. The body, accustomed to constant stimulation from sugar and fat, reacts when that stimulation disappears. But when you persist through this brief discomfort and allow your body to detoxify, true hunger returns, calm, rhythmic, and self-regulating. Throughout this chapter, I urge readers to stop thinking of food in terms of good or bad calories and instead focus on nutrient per calorie density. Health is not about eating less, it's about eating more of the right things. A plate filled with kale, berries, beans, and seeds is infinitely more powerful than one filled with low-fat yogurt or grilled chicken, even if the calorie count is higher. Once you understand that quality matters more than quantity, you stop fighting your appetite, and your appetite begins to work for you, not against you. The truth is that no diet can save you if it doesn't change your relationship with food. Restrictive plans built on deprivation only lead to obsession, guilt, and eventual relapse. The only sustainable path to health is one built on abundance, an abundance of real living foods. When you eat for nourishment rather than for comfort or conformity, the struggle with weight ends naturally. By the end of the chapter, I challenge readers to release the myths they'd held onto, the myths that have chained them to a lifetime of frustration. Health is not a punishment, it's a privilege that begins with knowledge. When you understand that food is medicine and that every bite can either heal or harm, you begin to eat with intention and awareness. This realization marks the end of dieting and the beginning of a lifelong journey toward true vitality and freedom. Chapter 3: The End of Dieting. In this chapter, I explain what I truly mean by the end of dieting. It is not about giving up on healthy eating or discipline. It is about ending the endless cycle of deprivation, failure, and guilt that defines the diet culture. For too long, people have been taught that the only way to lose weight is through restriction. Eat less, count calories, cut carbs, avoid fat. But this approach ignores the body's natural intelligence. The human body is not a machine that can be manipulated through numbers. It is a living, adaptive system that thrives when it is nourished, not when it is starved. The problem with dieting is that it fights against biology. When you drastically cut calories, your body doesn't thank you. It panics. It slows metabolism, stores fat, and increases hunger hormones like ghrelin. You may lose a few pounds at first, but eventually the body fights back. This is why 98% of people who go on diets regain the weight, often ending up heavier than before. Diets fail not because people are weak, but because they are designed to fail. They treat symptoms, not causes. They ignore the fact that overeating is not driven by greed or lack of discipline, but by toxic hunger and nutritional deficiency. I want the reader to understand that real health is not about fighting the body, it's about cooperating with it. When you eat nutrient-rich foods, your body naturally regulates itself. You don't have to count calories because your hunger signals become reliable again. You eat when you are truly hungry, stop when you are satisfied, and your weight stabilizes without struggle. The end of dieting comes when you stop trying to control food and start trusting your body's natural wisdom once it is properly nourished. I also talk about the emotional and cultural aspects of dieting. We live in a society that equates thinness with beauty and self-worth while glorifying fast food and processed snacks. This contradiction creates confusion and shame. People are told to resist temptation while being surrounded by addictive, engineered foods that exploit the brain's reward system. It's like asking someone to quit smoking while filling the room with cigarette smoke. The only real solution is to remove the toxic foods entirely and replace them with real, healing food. When your environment supports your goals, willpower becomes unnecessary. In this chapter, I emphasize that the goal is not just to lose weight, but to gain life. When you eat right, weight loss becomes a side effect of health. I share stories of patients who reversed heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension, not through pills or surgery, but through vegetables, beans, fruits, and seeds. These people didn't just lose weight, they regained their energy, their confidence, and their freedom. They stopped living in fear of food. Ending dieting also means ending the mental war with food. You no longer label meals as good or bad or punish yourself for eating something. Instead, you begin to see food as a friend, a source of vitality and pleasure. I want readers to rediscover the joy of eating, to taste the natural sweetness of fruit, the richness of nuts, the freshness of greens. Real food doesn't make you feel guilty, it makes you alive. The chapter concludes with a vision of what life looks like beyond dieting. A life where health is effortless because it flows from understanding, not from struggle. You wake up full of energy, not cravings. You no longer depend on caffeine or sugar to get through the day. Your mind is clear, your emotions stable, and your body feels light. This is not a fantasy. It's the natural state of a human living in alignment with nature. The end of dieting is not the end of caring about what you eat. It's the end of obsession. It's the moment you realize that food is not the enemy and you are not broken. The body wants to heal. All it needs is the right fuel. When you eat for life, you stop dieting forever, and you begin to truly live. Chapter 4. The Power of Real Food. In this chapter, I explore one of the most transformative truths about health, that real food has the power to heal, protect, and restore the human body. For too long, modern culture has treated food as entertainment, comfort, or convenience. Yet, food was never meant to merely satisfy hunger. It was designed to sustain life. The closer we eat to nature, whole, unprocessed, colorful foods, the more powerful the healing effect on every cell of our body. I begin by explaining that every bite we take either strengthens or weakens us. Processed foods, stripped of their natural nutrients and overloaded with salt, oil, and sugar, do not feed our cells. They inflame them. They contribute to oxidative stress, clog our arteries, damage our microbiome, and fuel diseases like obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Meanwhile, whole plant-based foods are packed with phytonutrients, thousands of powerful compounds that fight inflammation, repair DNA, and activate the body's self-healing mechanisms. These nutrients are nature's medicine, hidden within vegetables, fruits, legumes, seeds, and nuts. I emphasize that modern medicine has underestimated this simple truth. Pills can only manage symptoms. They cannot restore the natural harmony that comes from eating right. Real food, on the other hand, works at the cellular level. It cleanses toxins, rebuilds tissues, and balances hormones. When people switch to a nutrient-rich diet, their blood pressure normalizes, cholesterol drops, energy increases, and even chronic diseases begin to reverse. Food is not just calories, it is information for your body's biology. One of the most fascinating discoveries of recent years is how real food shapes the gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria that influence everything from immunity to mood. When you eat fiber-rich, plant-based meals, beneficial bacteria thrive, producing compounds that protect your heart and brain. But when you eat processed meats, dairy, or refined carbs, harmful bacteria dominate, releasing toxins that harm the gut lining and increase inflammation. I remind the reader that a healthy gut equals a healthy mind, and the foundation of that balance is simple: eat real food. The chapter also explores the emotional and sensory joy that comes from reconnecting with natural foods. I encourage readers to rediscover the taste of ripe fruits, the freshness of leafy greens, and the comforting warmth of beans and soups. Once you free yourself from the chemical overload of processed flavors, your palate resets. You begin to taste sweetness in carrots, savor richness in nuts, and appreciate the subtle beauty of natural foods that once seemed bland. This is the awakening of true appetite, one that aligns with health, not addiction. I challenge the myth that healthy food is boring or restrictive. When you embrace whole foods, you discover abundance, not deprivation. Nature offers endless colors, textures, and flavors: crunchy greens, creamy avocados, earthy lentils, tart berries, fragrant herbs. I share stories of patients who once thought they could never give up junk food, yet after a few weeks of eating real food, they lost cravings, gained energy, and found joy in every meal. Ultimately, this chapter is a call to return to nature's wisdom. The human body was never meant to thrive on chemicals and processed oils. It was designed for plants, fruits, and seeds that grow from the earth. When we eat this way, our bodies remember how to heal. We no longer rely on diets, medications, or restrictions. We rely on nourishment. The power of real food is not just about changing what's on your plate. It's about changing your relationship with life itself. When you eat living food, you feel alive. When you choose food that loves you back, you honor the miracle of your own biology. And in doing so, you discover that true wellness has always been within your reach. Chapter 5: Nutritarian Boot Camp. In this chapter, I take the reader inside what I call the Nutritarian Boot Camp, a structured journey toward reclaiming control over health, mindset, and habits. It's not a diet program or a temporary challenge. It's a process of transformation that begins in the mind and spreads to every cell of the body. To live a truly nutritarian life, one must commit fully, not try occasionally. Health cannot be achieved by half measures or weekend willpower. It requires a total shift in identity, from someone who eats to satisfy cravings to someone who eats to nourish life. I start by emphasizing the power of commitment. True change is not about privilege, wealth, or education. It's about persistence. The people who succeed are those who decide, once and for all, that they will no longer compromise their health. They stop making excuses like, "I'll start Monday," or "just this one treat." Half-hearted attempts keep the door open for old habits to return. When you commit 100%, you close that door permanently, and that is where transformation begins. Next, I discuss the importance of perspective. Success depends less on what you eat and more on how you think. Those who approach this journey as a punishment, as another diet to endure, almost always fail. But those who see it as a privilege, a chance to earn their health back, find joy in the process. They stop focusing on deprivation and start celebrating progress. Their taste buds adapt, their energy rises, and they begin to associate food not with guilt, but with vitality. A major part of this mental shift involves changing one's self-identity. People become what they believe about themselves. If you keep telling yourself you're weak, undisciplined, or a compulsive eater, your actions will follow that story. But when you declare, "I am a nutritarian," you align your thoughts and behavior with health. This is not a form of denial, it's a declaration of intention. The body follows the mind. Once you start to see yourself as a person who thrives on real food, your habits naturally align with that belief. The chapter then introduces 12 key principles, lessons distilled from real stories of those who embraced this path and changed their lives. Among them, prepare for challenges instead of avoiding them, celebrate small victories, and treat setbacks as learning opportunities rather than failures. Another principle stresses the importance of community, surrounding yourself with others who share your commitment. Environment matters as much as willpower. When your kitchen, friends, and mindset support your goals, you no longer have to fight constant battles of temptation. I also remind readers that this journey is not about perfection, but direction. Every step toward eating more nutrient-rich food and fewer processed foods is a victory. Even small improvements compound over time, leading to enormous results. What matters most is consistency. When you eat nutritarian meals daily, your body begins to heal. You stop living in reaction to cravings and start living in harmony with your natural hunger signals. Many people in the boot camp experience what I call food freedom, the liberation from obsessive thoughts about what to eat next. They report clearer thinking, stable moods, and a deep sense of empowerment. They no longer depend on caffeine to wake up or sugar to feel happy. Their energy becomes self-sustaining because it comes from within. The chapter closes with an invitation to fully embrace the Nutritarian lifestyle, not as a temporary fix, but as a lifelong practice of self-respect. The body you have is the result of every decision you've made up until now, but it's also capable of renewal. Every meal is an opportunity to choose life over disease, clarity over confusion, and vitality over fatigue. The Nutritarian Boot Camp is not about surviving a challenge, it's awakening to a new way of being, one where you no longer chase diets but live in alignment with your body's natural wisdom. Once you take that leap, you don't just change how you eat, you change who you are. Chapter 6: The Plan. In this chapter, I bring everything together, the science, the philosophy, and the mindset, into a clear and practical plan for living the Nutritarian way. This is not another set of rigid rules or calorie charts, but a guide to help you build a lifelong relationship with food based on knowledge, compassion, and balance. The goal is simple: to help you eat for health, longevity, and freedom. I begin by reminding readers that no diet succeeds unless it nourishes the body at the cellular level. Counting calories, tracking macros, or obsessing over portion sizes misses the point entirely. The true measure of a healthy diet is nutrient density, the amount of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytochemicals per calorie. When you focus on eating foods rich in these elements, your body naturally finds its balance. Hunger stabilizes, energy rises, and weight loss happens without effort or restriction. The plan is built around the concept of eating to heal rather than eating to satisfy cravings. I explained that the human body has an extraordinary ability to repair itself when given the right materials. Chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, and even some cancers can be prevented and often reversed through proper nutrition. Every bite of real food is a dose of medicine. Every processed meal is a dose of inflammation. When you choose nutrient-rich foods, you activate the body's healing mechanisms and give yourself a longer, stronger life. I encourage readers to adopt a flexible but consistent approach. The Nutritarian lifestyle doesn't mean you must become vegan or never eat anything indulgent again. Instead, it's about shifting the foundation of your diet toward foods that love you back: vegetables, beans, fruits, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. If 90% of your diet comes from these foods, your body can easily handle the remaining 10%. What matters most is the daily pattern, not perfection. The plan also includes a discussion on hormones, particularly IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, a hormone that promotes growth in youth but accelerates aging and cancer risk later in life. Diets high in animal protein keep IGF-1 levels elevated, fueling cellular overgrowth and disease. By reducing animal proteins and emphasizing plant proteins, we can lower IGF-1 naturally and extend both lifespan and health span. This is not about restriction, it's about choosing foods that align with how the body was designed to function. I provide practical steps for applying this lifestyle. Start each meal with a large salad or vegetable soup. Eat fruit as dessert instead of refined sweets, and replace oil with natural flavorings like herbs, citrus, or vinegar. Make beans the star of your plate. They are nutrient powerhouses that stabilize blood sugar, protect the heart, and keep you satisfied for hours. These small, consistent actions create profound change over time. The plan also addresses common challenges, such as social eating, cravings, and emotional triggers. I encourage readers to see these moments not as failures, but as opportunities for awareness. Every craving is a signal, not for more food, but for healing.
When you nourish your body consistently, cravings fade and true hunger returns, calm and natural. Importantly, I emphasize that this plan is not a quick fix. Healing takes time, and the process may feel uncomfortable at first as your body detoxifies from years of poor eating. But this discomfort is temporary, and on the other side lies freedom from food addiction, medications, and the fear of illness. I share inspiring stories of patients who followed this plan and witnessed life-changing results. People who reversed decades of disease, lost weight effortlessly, and regained their vitality. Their success wasn't due to luck or genetics. It was the result of consistency, knowledge, and faith in the body's natural intelligence. The chapter ends with a simple truth. Your health is your greatest investment. Every meal is a choice between disease and wellness, between survival and vitality. The Nutritarian plan is not about perfection, but direction, a daily act of self-respect and awareness. When you follow this plan, you stop living as a victim of food and start living as the architect of your own health. You rediscover what it means to feel alive, clear-minded, energetic, and free. This is not the end of eating, it's the beginning.
Chapter 7: Recipes and the Joy of Eating. In this final chapter, I bring the philosophy of the end of dieting into the kitchen, where knowledge becomes action and nourishment becomes joy. This is where eating for health transforms from an abstract goal into a daily celebration of flavor, color, and vitality. I want readers to understand that living the Nutritarian way does not mean living in restriction. It means discovering abundance in its purest form. I begin by addressing one of the biggest misconceptions about healthy eating, that it's boring, tasteless, and inconvenient. In truth, when you learn to use nature's ingredients properly, real food becomes far more satisfying than processed food ever could. Our taste buds have simply been hijacked by artificial flavors, excessive salt, and sugar. Once we step away from that overstimulation, our palate begins to reset. We start to appreciate the sweetness of ripe fruit, the richness of nuts, and the freshness of vegetables. The human body is designed to love real food. It just needs time to remember how. This chapter is filled with simple, delicious ways to live this truth. I divide the recipes into practical plans that fit different lifestyles. For those who are always busy, I introduce a too busy to cook menu, quick, nourishing meals that require minimal effort but deliver maximum nutrition. Breakfast might be oatmeal topped with berries and chia seeds. Lunch could be a giant salad bursting with greens, beans, and a tangy nut-based dressing. Dinner might be a lentil soup or veggie burger wrapped in crisp lettuce. These meals are fast, satisfying, and deeply healing. For those ready to go deeper, I present a full commitment plan, a more creative, culinary approach that turns the kitchen into a place of adventure. Here, you'll find recipes like creamy cashew dressings, bean stews with rich herbs and spices, roasted vegetable platters, and fruit-based desserts that feel indulgent but are pure nourishment. I want readers to see that health and pleasure are not opposites, they belong together. When food nourishes the body, it also nourishes the spirit. I also guide readers on how to build their plates intuitively. Each meal should revolve around 3 key principles: nutrient density, variety, and satisfaction. A truly healthy plate is not about cutting things out, but about adding the right things in. The more vegetables, legumes, and fruits you add, the less space remains for harmful foods. Instead of fearing food, you start celebrating it, filling your plate with colors, textures, and life. The recipes in this chapter are not just instructions, they are acts of empowerment. When you prepare your own meals, you reclaim control over your health. You decide what enters your body, and you infuse your food with care and awareness. Cooking becomes a meditation, an expression of gratitude toward the body that sustains you. I remind readers that this connection with food is sacred. It's not about perfection, but intention. I also touch on emotional healing. Many people use food as comfort to numb stress, loneliness, or boredom. But when you begin eating nutritarian meals, your emotional relationship with food starts to change. Real food stabilizes your mood, sharpens your focus, and awakens a deeper sense of contentment. You no longer eat to fill a void, you eat to celebrate life. Over time, this shift creates not only physical transformation, but emotional resilience. As the chapter unfolds, I share examples of how real people have integrated these meals into their families. Parents discover that their children, once picky eaters, start enjoying fruits and vegetables when introduced creatively. Families who once relied on fast food begin to cook together, rediscovering connection at the dinner table. The simple act of preparing and sharing wholesome meals becomes a foundation for love and vitality that extends beyond nutrition. The chapter and the book closes with a reflection on the deeper meaning of this journey. The end of dieting is not about following a plan forever. It's about awakening to a new relationship with life. When you eat real food, you are no longer dieting. You are living in harmony with nature and yourself. Each bite is an affirmation that you value your body, your future, and your freedom. In the end, food is not just fuel. It is communication. It speaks to every cell, every organ, every thought. When you eat with awareness, gratitude, and love, your body listens. It responds with clarity, energy, and peace. That is the true joy of eating, not in indulgence, but in alignment. And once you experience that, you will never need another diet again.